None. All right. Well, any discussions, thoughts? Representative Brennan.
Sam, I thank you for the analysis. And during the public hearing, there was just a little bit of a discussion about whether or not to include other people in this discussion, Department of Labor and some others. Did you have that with the sponsor of the bill, or?
Sorry, I'm not quite following.
There's just a discussion about, right now, the bill focuses on the community colleges.
Yes.
Kind of doing the analysis and potentially the training. And I wondered whether or not it would be helpful to involve the Department of Labor or others that are involved in similar activities.
So I think the committee could. I think where it then kind of gets the complication there is that, so the bill as drafted directs the Maine Community College system to evaluate unmet need. If there were a requirement to bring in other entities, you then get into the kind of territory of a non-legislative study. So it's the committee could do that, but it becomes a little bit of a different animal, I think, if you involve other entities.
All right, thanks.
Representative Millette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, the Maine Community College system testified in support with the suggested amendment that we change the committee to reflect the Education Committee. And so, since there was no one who was in opposition and it passed the last session, if I would make a motion if you were ready for that.
I have no other hands or questions, so I'm sorry. Representative Dodge, did you have a question?
I do not, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I am preparing to second this motion since it applies to my district.
I will step aside. Mr. Chair, I will step aside for the motion and allow Representative Dodge. No, it's your district, Representative Dodge. I think you should do that.
And that we have no other hands up, I would welcome a motion. Representative Dodge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would make a motion to pass LD 814 as amended, please.
Second.
Thank you. And seconded by Representative Millette. Any further discussion at this time? Yes, Representative Stearns, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I certainly support the intent of the bill. I believe that that's the mission of our community college campuses statewide. I think it's an ongoing mission. I believe they're already doing the work, and they're going to do the work in Waldo County as well as in the other 15 counties of the state. So I'm not going to support the legislation because it is county exclusive to one county. But I do support, again, the intent of the work. And I think that the community college is doing a fantastic job, the system right now, of identifying those workforce shortages and providing solutions to that to the very best of their ability.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions or comments? Representative Dodge has her hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would just like to respond, if I could, to Representative Stearns. I would also like to echo the support and praise of the great work that our community college system is doing, has done, and I'm sure will do going into the future. However, this situation has existed for a number of years with a serious lack of availability for the citizens in Waldo County without having to drive over an hour, which again, some who testified mentioned that this is a deterrent for some who are trying to balance lives with furthering their education. And I would ask all to please just consider that as you make your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, Sam, I'm going to ask, please, that you would,
Senator Rafferty, I think Representative Roach might have a question.
oh, thank you. Representative Roach.
That's fine. I'm used to Coach Rafferty ignoring me. I guess the question then, I do support, I think the community colleges, that some of my favorite things is these community colleges and what they do as a career. The hour drive part, I mean, shouldn't we solve this for everyone? I mean, I'm not quite familiar with every commute, but my guess is Freiburg people have an hour commute to their commute to York County Community College. I mean, a lot of people have these commutes to go to schools, and this bill is just looking at one simple. My guess is that's a lot of places. That's part of being rural, I guess, is in Maine. Maine is a state that's sometimes very hard to drive to things. You know, I learned that when I moved here from New York. It was a big shock to me. Going to the grocery store was so far away when it used to be across the street. But so I think, you know, while I'm not like against the bill as much as I am, just like it seems like we're doing something again that I'm not sure the benefit is there, but that's my opinion.
Thank you. I had Senator Daughtry and Representative Millette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and apologies that I was late. I don't know if you all saw me popping in and out. My computer's been intermittently dying, so if I just disappear mid-sentence, it's my computer's fault. I blame the interwebs. I did just want to sort of chime in that, yes, we are a rural state, and this is an issue that, you know, does happen in numerous different areas, but Waldo County is a little bit different. I'm not from Waldo County. I love going to Waldo County, but it was identified by, you know, different stakeholders, whether it's the community college or folks who testified on their personal experiences, that it's almost akin with the commute and with other resources to, I go back and forth on using this phrase, but an educational desert. They're in a unique situation where between the economy and the available resources for training and with the employers in the area, that this is something that is needed, that has been testified, you know, from the community college. And also it's something that, you know, if this works in Waldo County, we can replicate in other areas. But out of all the different sort of economic regions that I've, you know, been involved with and working on, you know, throughout my legislative career, this was something that was particularly needed in Waldo County and was definitely something that's different. I mean, we hear a little bit, you know, Machias has been trying to make sure that they're able to keep their educational institutions there and have a similar situation, but they already have it. So it's more of a protective sort of situation versus what we're looking at Waldo County, where this really is needed to make a difference. So I would urge everyone to support it. It's a really important bill, and I'm saying this from Cumberland County.
Thank you. Representative Millette and then Representative Roach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm, again, just reading the testimony from the Maine Community College System, which, again, was in support. We all know that the various organizations and stakeholders that come before us have ways of letting us know if they are really in support or not. And I read the testimony as unequivocal. It's quite expressive in what the community college plans to do should this pass. And I think it's it's clearly a vehicle for our education committee and the legislature to understand what are the particular barriers for really helping advance career tech careers in that particular area of the state of Maine. And again, as somebody who's not in that county, I can only imagine the kind of challenges that folks face there. And I think I could learn a lot from this. And I think many of my colleagues could as well.
Thank you. Representative Crockett.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll start by saying I agree with Representative Stearns that this is an ongoing objective for the community colleges. But when the community colleges come forward and say, you know, this is a bigger need, and we need to put more focus on this particular issue, I think speaks volumes to the importance it is to them that we move forward with this with this bill.
Thank you, sir. I do not see any other hands or questions. So Sam, I'm going to ask, please, sir, if you would be kind enough to call the roll and remind folks that it's necessary that we are visible when offering our vote to Sam.
All right, Senator, thank you. Senator Rafferty.
Yes.
Senator Rafferty votes yes. Senator Daughtry.
Yes.
Senator Daughtry votes yes. Senator Woodsum.
No.
Senator Woodson votes no. Representative Brennan? Representative Brennan, you're muted.
Yes.
Thank you. Representative Brennan votes yes. Representative Millette?
Yes.
Representative Millette votes yes. Representative McCray? I thought he was here earlier. Representative Dodge?
Representative Dodge registers a very large Waldo County yay, please.
Representative Dodge votes yay. Representative Crockett?
Yay.
Representative Crockett votes yay. Representative Salisbury? Representative Salisbury?
Yay.
Representative Salisbury votes yay. Representative Stearns?
No.
Representative Stearns votes no. Representative Sampson?
No.
Representative Sampson votes no. Representative Lyman?
No.
Representative Lyman votes no. And Representative Roach?
No.
Representative Roach votes no. All right, Senator. So it is 7 to 5, 7 in favor of the motion, Senator.
Thank you, Sam. And the minority report.
Excuse,
Ought not to pass.
excuse me for the delay. Ought not to pass.
Thank you very much, folks. And I will call the hearing on LD 761 to a close and thank you folks for your help. Next up, let me get back in order here. I got Mike correct and 814. Where am I?
That was 814, Senator.
Yeah, I know it. I'm losing my mind, Stan.
It's okay.
I dropped my papers when I ran out the door and I'm in a shuffle. Give me our next number up here.
I think it's 761, Senator.
761 I've got. Here we go. My apologies, folks. The hearing on work session on 761 is open, and that is an act to establish the Maine Community College System Pell Grant Match Program. And that is Representative Crockett of our own committee. And Sam, if you would, please.
Sure.
Thank
I'm going
you.
to share my screen. All right, this is the work session for LD 761, an act to establish the Maine Community College System Pell Grant Match Program. This bill establishes the Maine Community College System Pell Grant Match Program and provides that a student is eligible for the program if the student is a resident of the state, is eligible for a federal Pell Grant, and maintains a minimum grade point average. The grant award may not exceed 100% of the amount of funds provided by the Pell Grant that the student receives for the academic year in which the student applies. The availability of the grant and the amount of the grant are subject to the amount available in the fund, and the Maine Community College System may adopt rules to implement and administer the fund and program. The committee heard testimony from multiple parties in favor of the bill. It was noted that a predecessor bill, LD 860, passed out of education last session but died on adjournment. Noted that Mainers owe $6 billion total in education debt. 56% of Mainers with school loans have made reduced retirement contributions. Sorry, I had a mistype there. 60-something% have skipped other bills to make loan payments. 25% have skipped medical care prescriptions to make loan payments. UMaine and the Maine Community College System have worked to reduce debt, but there's still a lot to do. The bill will help meet the needs of the evolving economy. Current bill is consistent with the prior bill. Goal is to establish a scalable and sustainable program for students whose federal and main state grants do not cover the full cost of tuition and fees. There's a $3 million appropriation allocation section in the bill that is intended to provide Maine community colleges 7,200 Pell Grant recipients with $500 each in additional aid per year. 49% of degree-seeking community college students receive grant-based aid sufficient to cover their fees, so wouldn't need this. 38% of high school grads do not choose to seek further education. This has a negative consequence for the state, and this bill could help alleviate that. College education is still one of the best ways to boost lifetime earnings, but the cost of education can be a real barrier. Pell Grants are awarded to first-year college students with the greatest levels of financial need. Even though community college is more affordable than most other options, it can still result in significant debt. And students need to address that debt and the cost every year of their program. Establishing this program would help meet a goal of having 60% of adult workers with a post-secondary degree of value. Even a $1,000 reduction in college costs boosts enrollment by 3 to 5%, while the same amount in grant aid has shown to increase retention by 1 to 5%. Pell Grants have been around for quite some time, but their purchasing power has decreased as the cost of education increase. The bill ensures that the funds go to the most economically disadvantaged students who still enroll and graduate from college at lower rates than their higher earning peers. Opponents of the bill noted that the bill should apply to schools other than just Maine community colleges. Many independent schools have high numbers of Pell eligible students, and a better use would be for the state to invest in the Maine State Grant Program. Neither for nor against, none. Couple things were requested by the committee. The average student loan debt carried by the Maine community college system students was requested. I sent along a very comprehensive report from the Maine community college system that breaks down that number in a number of different ways. It was also requested how many students transfer into the community college system from other schools. Those numbers are here and were provided by the community college system. Potential technical issues. This is not so much an issue as just to bring to the committee's attention. It was referenced in committee that the bill caps the state match at 500 as written. However, the program would would not exceed 100% of the amount of funds provided by a Pell Grant. The way that Pell Grants are calculated is a little bit complicated, but the maximum for the 21 to 22 academic year that a student could receive is $6,495. So that is, as drafted in the bill, that is the match potentially that a single student could receive. And Representative Crockett does have a amendment that it does address that, which I can get to in a second. So just additional information, I provided some information about Pell Grants here. So just to, so folks understand what they are federal grants. They are awarded only to first-time undergrad students with the greatest levels of financial need. They are not loans, so they do not need to be repaid. The awarded amount depends on the expected family contribution, which is itself calculated on a statutorily based formula. Cost of attendance, full-time versus part-time status, and length of study. The maximum award is adjusted annually. I did include a link if you would like to learn more about Pell Grants. I included a link to last session's bill 860. The Education Committee reported out an amended version of this bill, and 761 reflects that amended version. It did die on adjournment last spring. I included some background information on student debt load from a couple of nonpartisan sources. And then again, Representative Crockett does have a proposed amendment. The preliminary fiscal impact statement reflects an ongoing cost of $3.6 million, and that does assume that $500 is given to each of the community college Pell eligible students. So I do have the amendment available, and I can go over that if Representative Crockett wishes. Would that, Representative Crockett, would you like me to do that?
Yes, I was struggling to find my mute button. Please share.
Did the screen flip? Can you see the amendment now?
It did flip, yes.
Okay, good. So this is a pretty simple amendment. It just adds language to the bill, making it clear that the grant award may not exceed the greater of $500 or 100% of the amount of funds provided by the Pell Grant. So that would cap then that match on $500 annually. And that's it. So I'm gonna stop sharing so you can see each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Any questions, folks, at this time? Representative Dodge?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Seneff. Just a question about if there could be any unintended consequences or results if the federal increase to Pell Grants goes through. Are we cool with the language as we've established here for possible increases? Thank you.
So I think Representative Dodge, you might be referring to some very, very recent happenings at the federal level, like yesterday. So I think as drafted, because if you went with the amendment, it would still cap at 500. So I think if you didn't go with the amendment, if you went with the bill as drafted and Pell Grants increased significantly, then on its face, you could have a match that is whatever the maximum, whatever the Pell Grant award is. And that's all. I mean, ultimately, it would all depend on how much money is allocated to the program. So that could get messy in terms of, and this may be better asked the community college how they would do that. Like, how would they allocate those funds from, if they would just split it up, or I don't know how they would do that. They are here, representatives from the community college, and may be able to opine on that.
Thank you. Would that be possible, Mr. Chair, please? And thank you.
That's fine. I think that we're trying to address a potential promise, but I'd be interested to see what they have to say.
We have President Dagler with us. Is that who you'd like me
And
to bring
also
in?
Becky Smith, both of them are, I think.
Let me just bring them both inside her.
Sure, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Great. I'm not sure if you folks heard the question from Representative Dodge or not.
I did, but so I think it surrounds unintended consequences with President Biden's announcement that he would like to significantly expand Pell. Two thoughts that I'd leave with the committee. One is that our students, while our tuition is relatively low, the cost of attending a community college remains high because they have living expenses, and cost is one of the major inhibitants. And most often the cost that inhibits them is not the cost of tuition, but the cost of really having to maintain some place to live, maintain food, and food insecurity is a problem. So all of those things, even with an expanded federal Pell, would really, quite honestly, still be in play. I do think that the way the bill is written, that the state has the opportunity to set a cap, and that the current cap would be $500 based on the allocation of, I think it's $3.6 million divided by the number of potential applicants. But that is how we'd administer it. So if there were changes, one option that the legislature would have, though this would run through the Appropriations Committee, is just to reduce funding in the pool and decrease the amount of Pell match that's available. Likewise, if there is strong demand and the legislature so wanted to, there's the opportunity to expand it. So it was really built and this is by members of the committee, not really so much by us, but in their foresight, built to be scalable. So I don't necessarily think that anything that may take place through the federal government would result in what Senator Dodge referred to as Representative Dodge, I'm sorry, referred to as an unintended consequence. And you would be in control of the outcome. You would remain in control of the outcome even after the legislation passed. And that control mechanism would come through the budgeting process.
Thank you. Ms. Smith, was there anything that you thought we might add to that?
Nope. Nope.
Thank you. All set, Representative Dodge? Thank you, folks. Any additional questions, folks, at this time? Representative Crockett, followed by Representative Brennan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Assuming this is appropriate by the sponsor, just wanted to maybe put a little clarity around the two objections that were stated in the public hearing as far as making this available to all schools. I agree that would be ideal. Of course, the focus here is on a lot of the job creations that are driven through the community college system, particularly centered around things like CTE, et cetera. And of course, the fiscal note being 3.6 million, I felt was a lot more palatable than a $22 million fiscal note, including all of the higher institutions. And the second piece about better use of funds for the Maine State Grant Program, there is actually a bill already sitting in front of the Appropriations Committee that came out of Idea B addressing that issue. Who knows where that will land? But of course, this is just directly for the community college system. Hopefully that clarifies those objections.
Thank you very much. I have Representative Brennan, Senator Daughtry, and then Senator Woodson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Degler, thank you for being with us today. And thank you for all the good work you've done with the community college.
Thank you.
If you could comment on two issues. One, I recall that 2 or 3 years ago, there was a national study that showed that community college students, almost 30%, were food insecure. And if you could reflect on that study, and also at the same time, in the analysis that was just done by our legislative analyst, it pointed out, he actually used a percentage, but I think there are about 180,000 to 200,000 people in the state of Maine that have some college but have not finished. And is it true that financial considerations are one of the major contributing factors to students leaving the community college and not completing their coursework?
So what I would like to do, Representative Brennan, and will do just for the general education of the committee, is pull together the exact statistics around all of those issues. But I can tell you that food insecurity is a bigger, we have run our food pantries through the pandemic. They've been supported by a very kind gift from Hannaford, and our food pantries are in constant demand. So the vast majority of our students come from very low income homes. Many of them stop out because they just cannot continue to pay for college. So the financial impediment to going to college, and again, it's not just tuition and fees, there is a total life circumstance that offers a huge financial impediment, and that is a major road stop for students continuing their education. Thirdly, one of the things that we've seen during this pandemic, and actually you've seen this before, but I'm going to go ahead and change my my background because we'll put it up just for you to take a look at, is the significant diversion that's taken place during the economy. There has been a significant increase in the amount of automation and use of artificial intelligence in the workplace. And those folks who do not have the skills, do not have a college education or some skill base that they can rely on, are destined to really ride in long-term unemployment. And so providing financial resources to help support them lift themselves out remains a critical need. Now, I've reminded everyone that we have two other, and you were very good, and we're very appreciative about the support that you've provided for our base budget. And those are our primary interests. But our overall interest is trying to support all Mainers and lift them into places where they can then begin to get good, meaningful jobs that have benefits and career opportunities. And those kinds of jobs are on the rise right now. But low-income jobs, the $15, $16 an hour job, we're seeing those go away, and they're going away entirely. And it's not just coming from hospitality. It's not just coming from retail. It is coming across the board. So those are not specific statistics, but I will get you that information just to share with the committee. But they are a reflection on the experiences and the here and now of what we really are seeing from our students during this pandemic. The other important point, enrollments went down nationally. I think 13%. Our enrollments in Maine were down about 9% during the pandemic. That we tracked those enrollments to mostly about 2/3 of them are men, about 1/3 were women, young men, and they were from low-income households. So it is a financial need that is present here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Senator Daughtry followed by Senator Woodson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to weigh in and say, one, I get a little bit of joy seeing Representative Crockett with this bill. From the first moment he was elected, I know this is a passion area for him. He's been very excited to work on student debt. And so even last session when we were back in IDEA, this was definitely one of the areas we both spent a lot of time discussing. And I was just trying to pull it up while Representative Brennan was talking. I know the final report from the Commission to Study College Affordability and College Completion is a little outdated now that it's 7 years old, but we actually had, and I know it's in here somewhere, we had figured out the unmet need for students going to community college as well as to 4 years institutions. And if I'm remembering correctly, the unmet need 7 years ago, and this is after you factor in things like the Maine State Grant, Pell Grants, institution-based aid, as well as other loans, folks who are making under $30,000 a year, which is one of the targets we use, we're still facing on average a $4,500 shortfall 7 years ago. So there's no way that with the pandemic that hasn't, amplified. And I'll never forget, we actually asked a lot of students to come forward with their stories about what caused them to, drop out. Maine has a wonderful high school graduation rate. I know you all know this, but we have an immense amount of stranded learners with some sort of college work with no certificate or completion or degree. And from 3 different students, we heard, they're working towards getting their associates at the community college, and a flat tire is what actually got them to drop out. We heard, other ones, they couldn't move their shift. They, to be able to do part-time and work, they couldn't actually make it work with scheduling. And there's plenty of folks who had to choose, honestly, between childcare or being able to continue. So I think, there's all different angles. I will always be supporting the Maine State Grant, and honestly, any bill that makes it more affordable for any student, especially those who are, attending, our community college and some of our most vulnerable. And I think capping at $500 is an excellent way to move forward. It helps those students that, we studied in this report, and we hear from all of our districts, every week. So I'll be supporting this with the amendment, and whenever we're ready for a motion, I'd be happy to second or make a motion, but I know Senator Woodson has some comments first.
Thank you very much. Senator Woodson, please.
Yes, thank you very much. I wish we could make these loans a lot bigger. And I don't want to take Senator Daughtry's thunder away, but I would love to make a motion ought to pass as amended.
Seconded.
Well, we appreciate you stealing the thunder, sir. The important thing is what comes next in terms of, so we have a motion then by Senator Woodson that we ought to pass, and that was seconded by Senator Daughtry. Any further discussion at this time? Yes, Representative Stearns.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank Representative Crockett for bringing it forward. I certainly will be supporting the bill, and I also am very grateful for Representative Dodge to bring up possible implications and President Dagler's response to that. And I believe that if something happens at the federal level that would alter the practicality and intent of this bill, that the legislature will be able to pivot at that time. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other discussion, folks? Seeing none, I'm going to ask, please, if Sam Baker, if you would be kind enough to call the roll.
Yes, Senator.
What do we vote?
Senator Rafferty.
Yes.
Senator Rafferty votes yes. Senator Daughtry.
A very enthusiastic yes.
Senator Daughtry votes yes. Senator Woodson.
Yes.
Senator Woodson votes yes. Representative Brennan.
Yes.
Representative Brennan votes yes. Representative Millette.
Yes.
Representative Millette votes yes. Don't see Representative McCray. Representative Dodge.
Supportive and joyful yay.
Representative Dodge votes yay. Representative Crockett.
Well, that would be yes.
Representative Crockett votes yes. Representative Salisbury. Can you hear us, Representative? Oh, yep. There we go.
Yes.
Representative Salisbury votes yes. Representative Stearns.
Yes.
Representative Stearns votes yes. Representative Sampson.
Yes.
Representative Sampson votes yes. Representative Lyman.
Yes.
Representative Lyman votes yes. And Representative Roach.
Yes.
Representative Roach votes yes. All right, Senator. So it is unanimous of those present and voting in favor of the motion. 12-0.
Thank you very much, sir, Sam, and folks. Thank you all. I think this is a great step, and our students will appreciate this down the road. I know. So thank you, Representative Crockett. I know for me, what jumped out and the analysis was the $6 billion that Mainers owe in terms of their education debt. That's quite frightening. But anything we can do to help is a benefit. So thank you all very much. And both Ms. Smith and Mr. Dagler, if you have a great day. Thank you for stepping in and helping us out. Representative Crockett.
Yeah, just before the folks leave, I just wanted to say a huge thank you for the support. I think our young people will benefit greatly from this bill.
And thank you for bringing it forward. So I'll call the hearing to a close. And we will move forward and see if I can get back in my order again, which of course I can. Next up will be hearing on LD 1152. And of course I had it, and now I buried it again. Can't stand doing the shuffle here. This is a resolve to require Maine post-secondary education institutions to review the level of student debt and develop plans to limit student debt. And that is also presented by Representative Crockett. And we would appreciate your information you can provide for us, Sam. Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Sorry, I've been a little slow here. Oh. All right, sorry, let's scroll up here. All right, this is LD 1152, resolved to require Maine post-secondary educational institutions to review the level of student debt and develop plans to limit student debt. The resolve requires post-secondary educational institutions in the state to review the level of debt at their institutions and develop plans to, 1, limit student debt to $25,000 over 4 years, 2, eliminate the gap in funding that exists between the average cost of attendance and the sum of the average financial aid award provided to the students and the estimated family contribution. 3, meet the financial need of students in the financial aid awards, and 4, eliminate the need to incur additional debt beyond $25,000. It requires post-secondary educational institutions to report the results of the review and their plans to the Joint Standing Committee on Education no later than December 1st. And the committee may report out legislation pursuant to that report. In favor of the bill, the committee heard testimony that there's been little to no discussion of student debt prevention. Cost of education has outpaced the cost of living exponentially in the past 30 years. Costs of education have doubled, but the median income is up only 5%. Higher education institutions not required to meet the federal guideline for need. Not enough investment in higher education has benefited students directly. The annual gap in affordability ranges from several $1,000s at the community college level to $5,500 at UMaine to tens of thousands at independent schools. In aggregate, the gap at the community college level is approximately 22 million, and UMaine is approximately 125 million annually. Federal loans, it was suggested, are not the problem. It is the loans are gap that students need to cover in addition to federal loans. Students can appeal their financial aid package, but many are not aware of that and lack the confidence to do so. It's become necessary, however, for Mainers to hold a college degree, but costs can put that out of reach for many people. 1 in 5 Mainers has student loan debt, and large debt load can delay or prevent borrowers from starting a business, buying a home, or starting a family. Opponents noted that at Thomas College, over half of students are Pell eligible and 60% are first generation. Over 95% receive financial aid. The school cannot control whether or not a student takes out loans, and the schools cannot afford to cover the gap in tuition. Outside factors can derail college experience for lower income students. Transportation, childcare, health and safety issues would be better addressed by a strong social safety net. And instead of this program, more money should go to the Maine State Grant Program. Neither for nor against. FAME noted their key strategic goal is to help create a workforce of future employees by increasing the number of Maine residents who can afford a credential of value. Support the goal of making higher education affordable. There's multiple ways to do this. Concerned that parts of the bill may not be workable. Not every Maine school has a large endowment or resources to allow them to meet demonstrated financial need. Institutions may be required to limit their fields of study, substantially grow their endowment, which could be difficult given the changes over the past 12 months. Some institutions may not survive. A requirement for an institution to fund gaps may cause costs to skyrocket, the tuition discount rate. Studying and reporting on student loan debt levels by institution is complex, and institutions' tuition rates may not tell the whole story. Job placement rates and future salaries are good at many places, and the return on investment is good for many students. Community college is very upfront about the charges students will accrue. 20 years ago, tuition and fees in the community colleges were some of the highest in the country, but the board has worked to change this, and now they're the lowest in New England and slightly above the national average. Cost $96 per credit hour to enroll in courses with an average cost of $3,700 for a full-time student. More than 70% of community college students are full-time degree seeking full-time degree seeking students qualify for financial aid. The community college survey on student engagement was conducted in 2016. It found that 56% of students work more than 20 hours a week, 60% live paycheck to paycheck, and 46% ran out of money at some point in the previous 12-month period. About half of full-time degree-seeking certificate community college students receive enough aid to cover their college tuition and fees. Though figures have declined slightly in recent years, Maine students' average debt load remains higher than the average for New England. limiting debt without increasing resources is an incomplete strategy. Limiting the debt load as described in this resolve could create perverse incentives for institutions to limit the number of lower income students that they admit. A more prudent approach would be to put the student at the center and continue to create opportunities for Maine students below a certain family income level or along a expanded sliding scale to access and complete education with the help of the Pell grant match program that was just discussed, and expanding the Maine state grant program. The legislature can influence that by increasing appropriations to these institutions. Maine ranks in the bottom 15 states per capita spending on public higher education. Information only, studying debt for UMaine is core to their mission. They do not need a bill to direct them to do this. As a system of public universities, it is direct appropriations that most influence the amount students have to pay. There's a lot of misinformation about student debt. Tuition and fees at the University of Maine are the lowest of any New England flagship, including 38% lower than UNH. Total cost of attendance remains the most affordable of all flagships in New England. Nearly all UMS students receive some form of financial aid, the average aid package last year being $11,502. Pell eligible students at UMaine universities, at certain UMaine universities pay no out-of-pocket tuition or fees. The average debt load for UMS students graduating with a bachelor's degree is $28,563. The state appropriation has been pretty flat over the past 15 years, increasing by just 0.6%. Question, it was asked if public universities require increased state aid to meet the goal of $25,000. So in testimony, you may reference the average student debt load in total of a UMS grad is $28,633. This would presumably, though, include costs, all loans taken out, so including costs to cover the total cost of attendance, which would include cost of living and not just tuition. So I did include with the materials emailed out to the committee a comprehensive report on financial aid from the UMaine system that was provided to me for the committee. So that was sent out last night. That has breaks down the statistics in much greater detail. Just a few things that I noted for the committee. It's a little unclear as we're into which schools the bill applies. The resolve references post-secondary institutions. In statute, that's defined as publicly funded schools, but the language is unclear and could be read to include private institutions, which would raise a question of enforceability as regards those schools. The resolve also directs schools to review student debt, to limit student debt over 4 years. It's a little unclear if this refers to the total cost of attendance or just tuition. And it appears that the bill is intended to apply to undergraduate student debt, but that is also not entirely clear on the bill's face. We don't have a preliminary, we do have a preliminary impact statement. Indicates that additional costs to conduct the review could be absorbed within existing budgeted resources. And Representative Crockett does have an amendment to this bill that I can go over if he wishes.
Yes, please, that would be very helpful.
Sure. So this amendment redrafts, it's a strike and replace. So what this does is it redefines some of the asks of the educational institutions. It does include the UMaine system, the Maine Community College system, Maritime Academy, and member schools of the Maine Independent Colleges Association, which again, that group there could be an enforceability issue there as they're not publicly funded institutions. But the items that this bill would have those groups review are one, how to limit student debt to the maximum allowable federal direct subsidized and unsubsidized loans that accrues over a 4-year period. So that might be, and I just caught this now, that the committee may wish to amend that to make it clear that it is for undergraduate debt. To eliminate the gap in funding that exists between the federally determined costs of attending a post-secondary educational institution, which is known as the estimated family contribution, and the sum of the average financial aid award provided to the student by the post-secondary educational institution. And 3, meet the financial need of their students in financial aid awards. So this is, I think the intent is the same as the original bill. This is to make it clear what exactly is being asked of the schools. And the decision to limit it to federal direct subsidized and unsubsidized. There are other types of federal loans. For example, Parent Plus loans that are taken out by the parent. So this limits it to those two core programs, the federal direct subsidized and unsubsidized. So I'm going to stop share. You can talk here. Happy to answer any questions as always.
Do we have any questions for Sam at this time? And Representative Dodge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Seneff. My question is, does this report back include or not include the unfortunate circumstances that some students find themselves in if they have made ill-advised borrowing in their pursuit of college? How does that factor into any sort of information that we might get back statistically, please? Thank you.
I think that's outside the scope of what this bill does. Representative Crockett might have an additional comment, but I don't think this bill would address that situation.
And I would agree with Mr. Seneff.
Any other questions?
We do have, again, we do have folks from the community college system, as well as the Independent Colleges Association, as well as UMaine here in the waiting area.
Thank you. We have a question from Representative Salisbury.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one point I wanted to clarify, and I'm sorry if it was already mentioned, but the report back or the information that we're looking for is around the cost of education, the tuition piece of it, right? It's not going to relay information about room and board or meal plans or books or things like that. Is that right?
I think Representative Crockett has his hand up.
Yeah, I'll take a stab at that. Actually, this resolve is focused on the gap that remains after all costs are in play. So this does not focus on tuition versus room and board. It's the overall cost that has left a gap of various levels depending on what institutions we're talking about.
Okay, great. Thank you for clarifying that.
I see Representative Brennan, please.
Thank you, Senator. If I could ask a representative from the University of Maine system, I'd like to ask them a question if I could.
Sure.
That's Samantha Warren, Sam.
Thank you.
Well,
good morning.
Welcome, Ms. Warren. Good to see you. I'd like to ask you two questions. And the analysis that was provided by Mr. Sennett, one or two of the comments was that the funding for higher education is very confusing and it's difficult for people to understand. And I wonder if you could comment as to why that's the case and why it's so confusing. And secondly, there was a statistic that over the last 15 years, funding to the university system has increased just over 0.5% per year. And could you tell me the impact that state funding has on addressing affordability issues? And how does issue of tuition and cost of college affect students either in terms of applying and or their retention in college?
Good morning. I appreciate the questions. There was a lot in there, so if I don't address something, please remind me to come back to it.
I'll
I know you won't let me get away with it. So good morning. I'm Sam Warren, Director of Government Relations for the University of Maine System. Happy to take a stab at those good questions. So in terms of college costs being confusing, I would remind the committee that last session there was a bill presented by Senator Dave Miramont to ask colleges and universities, both public and private, to look at how tuition and fees are presented to families. And the committee ultimately, at our request, agreed to not move that legislation forward and instead direct us in writing to look at the issue. And I'm happy to report that we have done so. And actually 2 of our universities, perhaps 3, will be piloting new tuition and fee models this coming fall, which will hopefully increase transparency greatly. We've been working with students, and there's been a team of folks across the university really working over the past year to develop these pilots. It will be at the University of Maine, the University of Southern Maine, and then the University of Maine at Augusta is also exploring a pilot where the tuition and the fees and even things like books and other supplies would be kind of rolled into a single cost that would be much easier for a family to understand. So I think we're making good progress on that. And once we have those plans fully fleshed out and gotten feedback from our students and guidance counselors and others, other stakeholders, would love to share those with you and get your feedback as well. But we're hearing good things from initial conversations. So that's that particular issue. In terms of state appropriation, you are absolutely correct. The 15-year average is that on average, our state appropriation has increased by just 0.6%. And as you well know, we've been essentially flat funded in FY 20, 21, 22, and 23. And of course, our costs are not flat. Largely, our budget is devoted to compensation costs, which are just last year alone increased $11.5 million. So you can imagine how challenging flat funding is while also addressing those rising costs. And of course, the cost of the pandemic. Though we've received very generous federal relief, the differential between our costs and new expenses as well as revenue losses and what's come in via federal and state relief is still in excess of $30 million. So again, a very complicated challenge for us. And in my testimony on the second page, you'll see the chart that I regularly share with you, that Ryan Lowe and others regularly share with you, that shows, in the history of the system, the state share of our operating budget used to be, more than 2/3, and then the student share was kind of the rest of that. And now it's really kind of flipped, and now the student share is actually greater than state appropriation. So, we have 2 primary sources of revenue, right? We have state appropriation and students and families. Obviously, we're aggressively seeking, private funding, as we showed earlier last year with the generous donation from the Alphon Foundation. But ultimately, the thing that most determines whether tuition and fees are affordable for Maine families is our state appropriation. Does that hit at the key questions? And again, I would really refer you to the graph. I'd be happy to hold it up, but I know I'm not supposed to have props.
Well, just to follow up very quickly, and I guess I'm not asking you just to reiterate or make the case, but clearly the affordability issue in many ways is directly related to the state appropriation. And as you pointed out, the flip from I think it was 1970s, maybe 1980s, that the university system received almost 2/3 of its budget from the state, and now 2/3 comes from tuition. kind of dramatically explains why we've seen increases in tuition and the affordability issues become more problematic. But that's a statement. You don't have to agree, or that's just an editorial comment on my part.
I would wholeheartedly agree.
Okay.
And I would I would point out a couple of other things that I think I referenced in my testimony. You know, I can see some of you saying, well, what is the university doing to control costs? And I think we have a very good story to tell there. As you know, as this committee is well aware, it's come up in other conversations this week. We have been very aggressive in cost containment. I think over the past decade, if you look at our workforce, it has contracted considerably. And additionally, I think we have undertaken a number of initiatives to create efficiency. So instead of, for example, instead of procurement being a function of each individual university kind of going on their own, procurement and many other functions, IT, human resources, a whole host of others have been centralized at the system level, and so we achieve economies of scale. For example, with food service, we have one contract for 6 of our universities instead of each university having its own. And so through that, we've been able to achieve a number of cost savings. And again, as I shared in my testimony, when you look at our tuition and fees, and even room and board compared to other New England states and nationally, we are the lowest in New England for flagships. We've increased by the least amount in New England. So there's all sorts of wonderful data that shows that we're containing costs. And again, tuition and fees in compared to the median income of Maine families has actually, become a smaller percentage. So again, we're doing our part to control costs. And, while I did testify with some concern about doing a study of something that is, we focus on every single day, we welcome the opportunity to do a study and reinforce to the legislature exactly what you said, Representative Brennan, and that is the harmful effect of flat and in some cases declining state appropriations on college affordability.
Thank you very much. Senator Woodson has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate Representative Brennan's questions and Sam's answers. I think another issue, and perhaps some educators on the committee can chime in here, but I go back to Representative, I'm having a brain cramp here. Representative from Waldo County. Who are you? Dodge. Representative Dodge. Statement that oftentimes students are unprepared or poorly advised or just don't understand all the costs involved in education. And I guess my question is that this bill raises a lot of issues and good issues, good questions. Do we not need perhaps better training for our school counselors? I don't know if they're qualified or in the loop of all the ins and outs of what is going to transpire once a child goes to a certain institution, or if they're pushed to a certain institution or encouraged to go to a certain institution. But I think that's a weak spot in our education systems. And I'm wondering if others could chime in on that thought.
Representative Dodge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would be happy to chime in on this, perhaps more than you would like to hear. Our guidance counselors in our high schools are pressed and stretched in many directions, but it has been my experience that they work extremely hard in prepping not only students for what's going to happen when they enroll in community or four-year degree programs. But they work with parents so that they also understand about the FAFSA. I remember meeting after meeting that our local guidance counselors hosted both locally and regionally to answer just those questions. And any help that they could get, they would ask both the colleges and the universities, please, can you send reps? They would always comply. And again, not only just at our school, but regionally to provide opportunities to answer those questions. So I give them 2 or 3 thumbs up in their work in this.
Thank you. I had Senator Daughtry, Senator Woodson, and Representative McCray.
Can everyone hear me? I'm still getting the unstable. Okay. Senator Woodson, you actually highlight one of the, as you said, largest weak spots that we have in our educational pipeline. And this is something, you know, as Representative Dodge was saying, that our guidance counselors are working as hard as possible and are already swamped on everything from, you know, life guidance and social emotional, you know, learning and just trying to, you know, work with their students. We keep having more and more placed on their backs. And I've struggled to try to figure out what the best point is to be able to ensure we're setting our students up for success. We do know exposure to college work, you know, whether it's early college or aspirations, does make a big difference for students to be able to be willing to look to their future and make those next steps. We all know that one adult in a student's life, you know, whether it's a teacher, a parent, a coach, can really make a difference for getting them to go to school. But one of the things, you know, our community college system has navigators, the humane system, I would defer to Ms. Warren, has different people available, including, you know, I've spoken, you know, with the folks at UMA who are working hard to get stranded adult learners through the doors. But it is one of the hardest parts to puzzle out and sort of pull out of the system of how do you ensure that students know how to go through the next decisions. We've looked at it from, you know, Senator Puglia and I worked a lot on financial literacy, making sure that students knew what they were going in for. You know, the Honorable Joyce Maker had worked as, you know, on a college campus about advising students about the loans. There's all these different multifaceted aspects, but the problem is we simply just can't figure out the time and necessarily the right person. So I think, you know, financial literacy is key. The navigator positions are key. And because we have so much put on our guidance counselors, I'm never quite sure, you know, where it's supposed to go. And mandating a college prep course for all students, you know, statewide isn't necessarily the right way to go either. But it is a weak spot. So I guess that's me getting on my soapbox to say we're still trying to figure that out, and it is a massive weak spot.
Thank you, Senator. Representative McCray.
Yes, thank you very much. I'd like to echo the comments of Representative Dodge as well as Senator Daughtry. As you know, or as a lot of people know, I taught high school forever, and it's been my experience that guidance directors, albeit that they are stretched so crazy thin, it's unbelievable with the amount of stuff thrown on their plate. I think as far as trying to educate students and the parents to the necessity of digging into this when they're juniors or seniors and they're applying to college and all that. I mean, time and time and time again, they will have workshops put together and they will do everything but give away $100 if you just come to this one meeting. And I guess it's under the category of you don't know what you don't know. And as always in schools, especially in the later grades, the only parents you ever get to any of these meetings, I don't care if it's student parent conferences, the only ones that you really get to see almost always are the ones that you don't need to see, are the ones that have got it pretty well handled anyway. And I think that the guidance directors, at least in my experience, have done as much as I guess there's got to be more that has to be done, navigator programs or what have you. So I don't think it's a guidance director thing. I really don't. So I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you.
Representative Crockett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, it's clear, I think, that students and family are confused and frustrated with the process. I'm hopeful that this resolve gives them more transparency that they're asking for while they navigate their, college choices and options. And as far as the high school counselors go, and I'll admit, I didn't even think of it until the question arose. Maybe they will be an unintended beneficiary of this information and help them be a better resource for their prospective collegians.
Thank you. Representative Stearns.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is excellent conversation, and I'm going to defend my colleague, Senator Woodson, a bit. He mentioned guidance counselors. When I was a high school principal, I would purport to faculty that each and every one of us are guidance counselors, even though we don't have the certificate. So it's, I think what we're getting at is everybody that is in that student's support team, if you will. Everybody has that good, accurate information coming forward. One thing we can do as legislators, both here and at the federal level, is not set our teachers and guidance counselors in schools up for failure by creating graduation rates or creating statistics that say X percentage of students were admitted to college. Those things, when we start to judge our schools on how many people got admitted to university, maybe we're creating a problem for some kids that are having an issue. One of the most egregious programs in my mind is the one where and I believe it's at some campuses of the community college, where we send students who are not prepared for whatever reason on to take coursework for no credit, kind of a tryout, if you will. And the statistics are abysmal for those students, and they end up leaving with debt and have a poor success rate. They'd be better off doing a continued work in high school or through the community adult ed program to get prepared to be successful. With all that said, and all the discussion, back to the bill, I will not be supporting the bill because I think that there are too many situations there that are beyond the control of the institutions. I think it could result in reduced personnel as people start to, we already have the data available. It's readily available, and the report back could almost be done by tomorrow morning that would say either give us more money, or we're going to have to cut personnel, or we're going to have to, just like a banker, say, nope, you're too high a risk. You're going to put us over the cap here. So we're not going to accept you to college because you're really not wealthy enough and we can't risk it. So I'm afraid of the unintended consequences, but the discussion has been excellent this morning, and I appreciate the good representative for bringing the bill forward.
Thank you. Senator Daughtry, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Stearns, for highlighting the discussion and sort of getting at the heart of what I think we all sort of sometimes, it's a hard thing in the way the committee structure is set up, and a lot of these issues to really dig in and go deep. And I think that's something that on this topic is needed. And I think I can speak for my former co-chair, Representative Millett. She and I chaired the commission, which I keep not name dropping over and over again. But the reason I keep coming back to this commission from 7 years ago is it gave us the format with the stakeholders to have exactly these conversations. We had the goals that Representative Crockett are in your bill. We had set up authorizing legislation to look at different mechanisms. And honestly, listening to the conversation, not only on this bill, but the bill before, it just reminds me that we need more space for those long-term conversations. This is not something that can necessarily be solved in a quick morning of the education committee, unfortunately. So I think maybe it's time for all of us, separate from this bill, but just in general, to think maybe it's time to have another one of those commissions or just another forum. I know we have different organizations we work with. Representative Millett and I work with the New England Board of Higher Education. There's a plethora of different research institutes, Education Commission of the States, but I think it might be time again, especially with all the new federal initiatives that potentially are coming our way, to have that more long-term conversation with everyone involved. So don't know if that's particularly helpful, but that is exactly where my head is right now.
Thank you. Senator Representative Millett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So yes, as Representative Senator Daughtry has mentioned, we did have that commission a number of years ago, and I can't believe how long ago it was. And so my suggestion is to simply, well, it's not simply, but to have these folks reconvene and update the information that we received, in particular, the gap, the affordability gap that we discovered when we did that report. I think that would be helpful for all of us to know. The optimist in me could say, hey, it's shrunk. We're doing such a great job. Or it's the same. Or the most negative outcome would be, no, it's actually increased. But I think we need to know. So I think that would be a helpful direction for us as a committee and for the legislature. And if the sponsor of the bill would be willing to amend it to do that, I think that would be great.
Thank you. Senator Daughtry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is a question for Sam. With the bill in front of us with 1152, can it be changed into the type of resolve that would reauthorize a commission, or is that too much of a leap of faith?
I think it's sufficiently related that would be doable.
Then if that is possible, I would sort of say ditto to what Representative Millett said. I don't know if it's necessarily just looking at the gap like you raised, Representative Crockett, but I do think there's a couple of other things. If you look at the charges on what that commission was looking at, obviously the main state grant is something that we always want to be looking at, what the gap looks like, and also, factoring into the 10-year strategic plan, and also, just trying to figure out what's coming in from the federal government. So those would sort of be like the top 4 takeaways. And always, I think in all these conversations, it's incumbent on us to look at stranded learners and just think about how that, plays into the other 4 items as well.
Thank you all. And Sam, if you could kind of take a couple of minutes to put some of that to words, I'm going to make my own comments and, give you some time to do that, I guess, if possible. But I think that Senator Woodson brought up a great point, and I don't know whose responsibility it is, but I got to tell you, my wife and I, we had 3 kids that went through college, and we went to all these workshops offered by our school. I thought I was financially literate, but as my girls are 10 years, the youngest is 10 years out of college now, and 2 of my 3 girls still have a significant amount of debt that is triggered to their graduate school work. And I know in both cases, it's kind of crippling their lifestyle. So again, whose responsibility is it? It's unclear, I guess, but I know that we did sign on the dotted line and have to take some ownership to that. But I also think that this committee does have some work in terms of moving forward and bringing this to the attention of the legislature potentially as a whole in terms of the impact that funding has on our current system, but also, at the national level, I know in my mind, I think that the rate at these banks are charging these students the interest and so forth. To me, I think that is that is something else that has to be reviewed, which is outside of our realm. But bottom line, I attended a lot of the workshops. And even today, I still am confused by the whole process at times. Senator Daughtry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for sharing your personal family story. It literally highlights a lot of the issues all of us are facing and why this is such a difficult issue to tease out. I am loath to say this with our bill load, but thinking about that, I'm wondering if it would make sense to maybe pause on this and think if this bill is the vehicle to reauthorize a commission to look at this, or just sort of have all of us think about those questions that we would like to have answered, whether, it's the ones that Senator Whitson was bringing up, whether, everything that everyone else has said, Representative Crockett, maybe if we have a little bit of time to sort of hit pause, think about what are the key things that we're trying to get at and tease out, in addition to, what Representative Crockett has in the language of this bill, and maybe revisit it and sort of, go from there. But just a thought as we move forward.
Thank you. Representative Crockett.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I am certainly open to any discussion that hopefully moves this resolve and discussion forward. I do have a bit of some caution to throw out there. Obviously, we know the study that has been referenced is a bit aged, being 7 years old now. And one thing I noted when I read the study earlier this week, only one of the main independent schools participated in that study. I do believe if all the stakeholders that we've identified in this resolve aren't part of the discussion, we would get an incomplete report on the specific ask that's in this resolve, which is focusing on reducing that gap. So obviously I have some hesitancy there in duplicating what was done 7 years ago. And because that, from when I read it, it felt even much bigger with all these other questions that we're dealing with now, as opposed to what this resolve was focused on. I don't know if that clarified anything or helped, but that's where my initial thoughts as we're talking here.
Thank you, sir. Senator Daughtry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to let Representative Crockett know, and I do believe Dan Walker, the representative for MICA, is in the waiting room. So if you want to know more about it, I know he can jump in on it. But the reason there was only one independent college is he was the one appointed by the association. They were able to pick their member to be the one who was on the commission. So just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? Yes, I see hands up from Representative Brennan as well as Representative Stearns.
Yeah, I just would raise just a process issue in terms of timing and tabling and everything else. And if we could make some progress and move forward on this bill today, and then if there are additional amendments that Representative Crockett would agree to and trying to incorporate the advisory committee or whatever, we could look at that at language review. We also probably would have some time Monday afternoon to also look at it. But we do have quite a few bills that we've already tabled. And if we can make some progress on this today, I think that would be helpful. But I'm just offering that more from not a content point of view, of just a process comment.
Process and progress are good. Representative Stearns, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is so good to have Senator Daughtry and Representative Millett be able to reference that study. And it is amazing to me that the darn thing is that old. I'd be much more likely to do that and to support an update of the data. However, and playing off Representative Brennan's thought, I'm wondering about tabling to a time certain Monday afternoon, perhaps, that would create that little bit of a window of time for Sam, et cetera, to gather that information and bring it forward. So I'd be supportive of that. And I also am cognizant of Representative Crockett's comment about the differences between the two vehicles, and understand that, I think, as well.
Thank you. Senator Daughtry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I would defer then, to ask Representative Crockett, the bill sponsor, since I feel like we took the conversation and went over here with your bill. So I think I'd like to hear where you are. And I think no matter what, I think, separate from this bill and this conversation, it's clear, as Representative Stearns just said, it's time for an update on this and really, sinking your teeth into it. But I also recognize that your bill is completely different from that and has, some very specific assets looking for with the report back. So maybe they're two separate entities and we're all just getting a little too excited, which is completely understandable when it comes to my favorite policy area.
Representative Crockett, if you would respond to that, please.
No, what Senator Daughtry says, right. I am actually not surprised by the tangents that the discussion about debt prevention or student debt in general brings out of everybody, because it's such a passionate issue, not only for us, but for the families and the institutions that are involved trying to grapple with this, this challenge. With respect to timing, obviously, if, with Representative Brennan's suggestion, to move it 3 days out, obviously I would be, comfortable with that. And I would guess I would keep my fingers crossed that we would be able to get appropriate solutions to all these questions within 3 days. But I certainly, I would be quite discouraged if we were looking to table it much longer than that.
Thank you. I see Representative Brennan's hand up as well.
I was just going to say, Senator, based on Representative Crockett's comment, I would move to table LD 1152 for work session on Monday the 3rd, till Monday the 3rd.
Second.
Having the motion to table and it's second by Representative Brennan, seconded by Senator Daughtry. I'm just going to ask for a show of hands. We need a simple majority to do so. If you would kindly hold your hand up, we get an indication. I see 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 hands up. And so that's a unanimous in terms of what 12. I'm sorry. I think all that I see on the screen are up. So that gives us the ability to table till Monday. So that I'll
13.
13.
Got the puppy.
Oh, well, we'll count 4.
Sorry about that.
We'll pause there. So, and then,
He wants to pause the bill.
Oh, there you go. Quick, very quick.
Good. That is good.
So in any case, we'll, with that, I will close the hearing on 11:52, understanding that it's going to be tabled until Monday at some time. Thank you, folks, very much. Question from Sam, sir.
I was just wanted to ask the committee, do I have leave from the committee to work with the sponsor and perhaps Senator Daughtry and Representative Millett to get something in order for Monday?
Please do, yes. If they're willing and able.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next up, I will open the hearing on LD 1248, which is an act to limit the cost of a four-year degree offered in this state and implement provisions designed to reduce student debt. And that is being presented by, that was sponsored by Representative Falkingham. And Mr. Senford, if you would.
This is the work session on LD 1248, an act to limit the cost of a four-year degree offered in this state and implement provisions designed to reduce student debt. This bill provides that a post-secondary educational institution that receives any state or federal funds may not charge a student more than $40,000 for a bachelor's degree or other four-year degree. Proponents of the bill, the student debt has become a topic of conversation recently, but a lot of the conversation is around debt forgiveness, and the focus should instead be on preventing debt. Private colleges have the right to set on tuition, so this bill applies only to public colleges. $40,000 is higher than UMaine's current charges, which is about $9,000 in tuition. The bill does not include room and board costs. Opponents, it appears that the bill is not intended to apply to the independent colleges. However, this severe limitation on how much a post-secondary institution could charge have a negative impact and reduce and would create an indirect tax on everyone, as the state would need to cover the extra costs of education and would also benefit wealthy families who can't afford to pay costs of tuition. Information only, UMaine has been, again, flat funded, but has still decreased its debt and its stable enrollment. As a system of public universities, it is direct appropriation from the legislature that most limits the ability of the college to control, or the universities to control what students pay and need to borrow. Again, a lot of scary information about student loan debt. The inflation adjusted costs of in-state tuition and fees has gone up just 3.4% in 5 years, one of the lowest in the nation. The total cost of attendance at the flagship is $26,340, among the lowest, or the lowest of the New England flagships. Nearly all UMaine students receive some form of financial aid. At 4 UMaine schools, all Pell eligible students pay no out-of-pocket tuition or fees. Average debt load is for UMS students graduating with a bachelor's degree is now $28,563,000, which is 17.4% below the New England average for four-year public institutions. Again, state appropriations essentially flat, with just a 0.6% increase on average over the past 15 years. Also noted that UMaine incurred about $30 million in pandemic-related costs that have not been offset by aid, and is putting additional costs to the universities. State appropriation now accounts for just 42% of the UMS operating budget. So question as to what types of schools the bill applies. Just deferring that question just for a second. I do go through that in some detail. The question, are there any public schools in Maine that charge more than $10,000 a year for tuition? So I went and looked at this. So UMaine tuition is by credit hour. I included a link to a chart of costs per credit hour, and those are significantly different for Maine residents and out-of-state residents. For fall of 2020 to 21, tuition for a Maine state resident enrolled in the undergrad program is $308 per credit hour. The total annual cost of tuition for a Maine resident is $9,420 based on 15 credit hours per semester, including mandatory fees. That's $11,744. Room and board, an additional $11,286. Books and supplies $1,000, and miscellaneous expenses and travel $2,000, for a total estimated cost of $26,230. The annual in-state tuition at Maine merits $11,250 for a Maine resident, plus room and board and additional fees. Total cost of attendance in the range of $25,001. And again, links to information there. Potential, just things for consideration. Can folks hear me? I just got a note that my internet connection was unstable.
You broke up maybe
Okay.
twice, Sam, but you're okay, I think.
Okay, sorry, I'm on the Wi-Fi in the Cross building, so not sure what's going on. So the bill applies to post-secondary educational institutions that receive any state or federal funds. I did want to note, it does seem, as noted by the sponsor, that the intent is to limit this to public universities, but receipt of state or federal funds is a bit ambiguous of a term. And I think that could be interpreted to include private universities that receive state or federal grants or for whose students receive federal loans. So just wanted to flag that language a little bit. The bill prohibits a school from charging a student more than $40,000 for a four-year degree as written. And again, I think the intent is clearly undergraduate degrees, but as written, you could read that as including four-year graduate degrees. That's not quite clear. And then testimony indicates that the intent was that the $40,000 limit apply only to tuition and not to room and board or other cost of living, which many students, the loans cover those things. And that limitation, I don't think is quite clear in the bill language as drafted. So if the intent is to only be tuition, that should probably be specified. Preliminary impact, there is not one yet. Not one has not been done yet. So that's what I've got for you on this bill. So I'll stop sharing.
Thank you. Thank you, Sam. Folks, any questions at this time? Yes, I see Representative Brennan. You're muted, sir.
I do the right thing by muting and then forget to unmute. Just out of curiosity, the bill's fairly prescriptive in saying that universities can't charge more than X amount of dollars for tuition. Is there an enforcement mechanism, or what would happen to a university or college that did exceed that tuition amount?
There's not an enforcement mechanism in the bill. It is unclear to me what the consequence would be for that. It may be an issue that would end up with the Attorney General's office, but I don't know that that's entirely clear on the
Thank you.
Yes, Representative Stearns, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm really grateful again for Representative Fockingham for bringing this forward. And I think his thoughts, although in this bill expressed in a different way, fall back to our conversations regarding concerns about debt in the last bill. However, I'm reluctant to set a cap. I think there are unintended consequences and there are situations beyond our control. The one that stands out immediately to me is Maine Maritime. And given the data that we've had presented to our committee over the years from President Brennan regarding the state share of costs of the Maritime Academy compared to other maritime academies and all those similar factors, I think setting a cap could have unintended consequences to some very good institutions and very good people. So again, I'm reluctant to, I'd be reluctant to support this particular legislation, but would hope that by Monday afternoon, perhaps we'll have a path forward to take a good look at this issue.
Thank you, sir. Representative Crockett, followed by Senator Woodson, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I echo Representative Stern's concern regarding a cap. And, you know, a cap will create unforeseen activity. If you go, in a calendar year, yes, ideally everyone's taking 15 credits every semester. And but the reality is that's a big moving target. And it's very easy to see somebody taking 34 credits in a calendar year And that would actually cost the university money on a credit basis down to $294. So, and I don't think that is the goal of the bill. So I think a cap is just probably not the best way to go.
Thank you, sir. Senator Woodson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I agree with Senator Stearns and Representative Stearns and Crockett. Even with the changes that Sam brought up that would be needed to clarify the bill, I can't support it.
Thank you, sir. I don't have any other hands up at this time. Senator Daughtry.
I was just going to echo the comments of my colleagues, and I didn't know if you were looking for a motion or if Senator Woodson was ready to go there. So,
Well, I was going down that road, so you're certainly welcome.
absolutely, I agree with everything that has been said. I agree with the sentiment behind this bill and thank the bill sponsor. I completely understand where this is coming from and completely agree with the heart of it. But setting a cap, especially Representative Stearns, when you mentioned Maine Maritime, and I was thinking about Maine Maritime and a lot more of the technical schools that have all these associated costs. But just want to say, for the record, that I know this entire committee is committed to making a difference on this. So with that, I would move LD 1248 ought not to pass.
A second.
So that motion's been made by Senator Daughtry, seconded by Senator Woodson. Any further discussion, folks, at this time? Sam, I would ask, please, that you call a roll, and we are a statement of yes would support the ought not to pass motion made.
Senator. Senator Rafferty?
Yes, ought not to pass.
Senator Rafferty votes yes. Senator Daughtry?
Yes.
Senator Daughtry votes yes. Senator Woodson?
Yes.
Senator Woodson votes yes. Representative Brennan?
Yes.
Representative Brennan votes yes. Representative Millette?
Yes.
Representative Millette votes yes. Representative McCray?
Yes.
Representative McCray votes yes. Representative Dodge?
Yes.
Representative Dodge votes yes. Representative Crockett?
Yes.
Representative Crockett votes yes. Representative Salisbury? Not here. Representative Stearns?
Yes.
Representative Stearns votes yes. Representative Sampson?
Yes.
Representative Sampson votes yes. Representative Lyman?
Yes.
Representative Lyman votes yes. And Representative Roach?
Yes.
Representative Roach votes yes. All right, Senator, so it is unanimous of those present and voting in favor of the motion. 12-0.
Thank you very much, folks. And again, we all know where our thoughts are at. So thank you, Representative Faulkingham, and thank members of the committee. I'll call that workshop to a close. Which brings us to LD 1280, and I will open the workshop on that LD, which is an act to bolster rural economies. Excuse me. And that is Representative Collins. So Sam, if you could, please give us the breakdown.
Sure thing. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen.
Thank you.
All right, this is LD 1280, an act to bolster rural economies. This bill establishes the Maine Rural Economy Future Development Program within the University of Maine system to promote future business development in rural Maine by providing course offerings on the economy of rural Maine. The bill requires the University of Maine at Fort Kent, the University of Maine at Presque Isle, the University of Maine at Machias, and the University of Maine at Farmington to each create and offer a program that provides a comprehensive study to the rural economy of Maine and that promotes the partnering of students with businesses in rural Maine. The bill specifies that the program must include provisions that, on a biennial basis, allow for up to 3 students from each campus required to implement the program to be selected to work for 2 years on rural economic growth once they graduate, and that provide each student with compensation, healthcare, a housing voucher, and student loan forgiveness in exchange for work at the respective campus. The bill also provides general fund appropriations of $2 million per year, with each of the 4 campuses required to establish and implement the program receiving $500,000 annually. Proponent of the bill, working on amendment, he has noted he was working on an amendment to form a study and to provide for private funding. The legislature can do more to help rural areas. Rural Mainers need help with job development and student debt. Urban areas have a disproportionate share of the economy in Maine. Rural Mainers have not shared in that growth in the same way. Focus on the most rural Maine schools, need to train people in rural Maine who in turn become leaders. And note that the goals are consistent with DECD's economic development plan. Neither for nor against noted that economic development programs in rural Maine would boost the economy and grow the tax base. One of the best ways to do that is to educate students regarding business opportunities in rural Maine. 2 concerns, one, that the focus should be statewide, and then a concern over funding. Maine has very high costs of living that need to be addressed. Maine does have an economic plan in place. Foundational jobs include jobs in industries such as manufacturing, construction, farming, fishing, forestry, transportation, and energy. Information only. UMaine Board of Trustees is tasked to analyze and authorize new programs. This is informed by faculty, university, and system leaders and employer partners. Appropriations for UMS again have been flat. Concern over taking on new programming at this time that has not gone through the review of the board. There are existing programs that are targeted to rural Mainers, including the University of Maine at Farmington's Outdoor Recreation Business Administration Program, Alpine Operations Certificate Program, the seminar course Making Change in Maine, the Undiscovered Maine Research Project, community partnerships that are part of Maine at Prescott's Business Administration Program, the upcoming online business management degree offered by UMaine at Fort Kent, New Ventures Maine, and other community-based programming, and that Maine could do even more with further investment. Request for information. It was asked what the preliminary fiscal note included. So this preliminary fiscal note is reflective of an initiative for a $2 million appropriation, which would give each of the 4 involved universities $500,000. UMaine did note that they anticipate that the fiscal impact on the system would be much higher than 2 million. And they noted those costs will be ongoing and require the hiring of multiple faculty at the 4 universities. They would need their graduation, and it appears any revenue from tuition could be negated if the intent is for loan forgiveness. A question about how do Machias and Fort Kent campuses work with local communities on regional development issues. So Ms. Warren provided me, she noted that there's a number of examples that were discussed in the summary above. She also provided me with some additional information, which I won't read through here, but other initiatives that the university is taking to promote rural Maine business development. And she did note that the university does have representatives on the group developing the state's 10-year economic development plan. Representative Collins does have an amendment, which I sent to you last night. Just a note for consideration, as was touched on the testimony, the degree of involvement of the Board of Trustees in developing the course of the study is a little unclear. The state law does state that the board is responsible for budget development and for courses of studying and degrees. I did include that language from statute here for your review. The board is also responsible for appointing advisory committees. I included that language as well. And then Ms. Warren did provide me with some information regarding the process to approve a new program of study. She noted that this is a process that is ultimately approved by the board, but that requires a large amount of faculty and staff input. I have a link here to a description of that process. She did let me know that that was a pretty high level description, and provided an example of a board meeting packet, which does go through in more detail what that process looks like. She did also note that the Education Committee has heard another bill that sought to add 6 faculty as voting members to the UMS board based on the premise that decision-making need to have more faculty input. And in her opinion, this bill circumvents faculty as well as those confirmed by the legislature. She noted to me she was unaware of any time recently where the legislature directed UMS to establish programs at specific universities. Again, that is from Ms. Warren. So the preliminary impact statement again is I missed a zero there, a $2 million annual appropriation with $500,000 going to each school. And Representative Collins does have a amendment, which I can put up on the screen, and if the committee would like, and either I can walk through it or the representative could walk through it. Up to you. Would you like me to put that up, Senator Rafferty and Representative Collins?
Sorry, I was muted, Sam. My apologies. So are you confident enough in understanding the amendment, or would you prefer that Representative Collins does so?
Totally up to Representative Collins.
So, Representative, you good with explaining that, please, for us?
Yes, Senator Rafferty. Thank you, Senator Rafferty, Representative Brennan, members of the Education Cultural Affairs Committee. I'm Representative Benjamin Collins, House District 42, part of the City of Portland. As I referenced in last week, my testimony on the initial public hearing, that I would be submitting a amendment. And I appreciate your committee analysts working on this quickly. I sent an outline and what I wanted, and he put this together in a more formal format. And in essence, basically, what this would do is look to create a resolve to have a study with some legislators, members of the universities involved, participation from the university system, participation from University of Maine and Orono's economic program, participation from small and large businesses, people in agriculture, forestry, fisheries, participation of a student. And basically what this would do, and I mentioned in here as well that this probably could be done for no cost if we're in a remote format. I think most of the cost, which wouldn't be that large at all to do a study, would be if we're having people from around the state, if we're reimbursing them for their travel expenses. There wouldn't be any need for any consultants. Staff, OD working for the state could do this, as has been the precedent in past resolves for joint studies in the legislature. So basically, for really no cost, or if there was a cost, as I mentioned in the last public hearing, and what's mentioned in this amendment is the legislature can go out and get grants or contracts to fund this. But again, I don't even think it would be necessary if it would be a remote public hearing. So basically, and as I mentioned very specifically in the public hearing, and as I indicated in this amendment, I'm in no way asking for the university system to take out of their existing resources. I'm not asking for the university system to change their process, which they add new courses. What I'm asking for is for the university system with legislators and other stakeholders is to do a study to look at the potential need to adding maybe courses. Maybe it would be something you could minor in economics, but it would be within the existing structure that I understand it wouldn't be done overnight. I've said that before. Whatever the process that it would take to add new courses, that it would go through that process. What I'm simply asking for us is not to make any decisions, not to force the university to do anything, but to study, merely study the possibility of adding a course or more at one or more universities to study the rural economy of Maine. I understand the University of Maine in Orono has a good program in economics. They promote that. They're saying it's a field that people in Maine or from out of Maine should get into, that there are good possibilities, that the starting pay is more than many other jobs in the state. So I promote that as well. What I'm just basically asking for is to study, would it make sense that if our biggest economic hurdle in the state is the rural economy, the populations there, many other factors. The fact that where the universities of consideration, Fort Kent, Presque Isle, Machias, and Farmington, are in some of the poorest counties in the state with serious issues. And why not, in those communities, use our existing infrastructure of the University of Maine system to actually create experts on Maine's rural economy. We're trying to train future leaders to solve our problems. So I thought it would be appropriate that we use the infrastructure in place to do so. And in doing so, not only study this issue and create experts, but also have students, once they do become experts in this area, stay in those communities, specifically trying to get students from outside of Maine. We see any growth in the state all being in southern Maine, but we, as myself as an example, leaving Fort Kent, we have so many people that leave Fort Kent for southern Maine or go out. So why not try to keep people that go to these universities in the areas that are struggling, keep them in those areas and have them work to help grow the economy in those areas. And what's consistent with the governor and the Commissioner Johnson 10-year economic plan is to do those things that is suggested in there, which is to keep people in the areas, to pay these graduating students a salary, help them with their education costs, with their healthcare, with their housing, which in essence would be a pilot project to see what could happen if we did that. And I did note as well, which would be, I think, a big component of this, is not just studying the history and the trends of Maine's rural economy and population and why we're where we at today, but is to look at what works of attracting people to stay and work or start businesses in rural Maine, start families. And I would look to southern Maine. A lot of the growth has been in people, foreign-born people, refugees or immigrants. And I think this goes back to our history in Maine. How do we get people here in areas where there isn't a population, where we need to grow the economy and communities? It's going to have to be immigrants, a lot of that. I mean, that's just the history of along the rivers, all over rural Maine, the mill towns, the factories. You had, French immigrants, you had Polish, Irish, Italian, and so on and so forth. So as is the case in southern Maine, I think you'll find that in more northern rural Maine, the way to attract people is to look at that as well. And then the last part that I mentioned is I think it's critical that we study how we can, and this again, as well as I think being a lack of a focused direction on studying the rural economy in Maine, we've also left out our federally recognized tribes, which for the most part are in these rural areas near campuses in Presque Isle and Halton, and closer to the Machias area where you have the two Passamaquoddy communities. But there's a large tourism based on tribal economies around the country. We don't really do that so much in Maine. And also, I don't think it's really been studied, but there are a lot of benefits when tribes are part of the federal SBA program, and they have preferential treatment to get large federal contracts with military and other government entities. And all around the country, lots of economic development happens in rural areas based around tribal economies, and we haven't done that in Maine. So this simply is looking at the large picture. It builds on the success of what the Economic Development Commissioner's Office is doing, what the University of Maine system is doing. And so basically, it's since we already through the University of Maine system have an economics program, it's simply studying to say, would it be feasible, would it make sense that if our biggest hurdle in Maine economically is our stagnant rural economy, which in many places has been a reality since Eisenhower, and despite many good intentions and policies and programs, we still have the most rural state in the country by most metrics. We still have great poverty and economic struggles and many other inflictions in these areas where the universities are. So it's using the university system to work with the students and the communities, in essence, to have a pilot project to look at this. And so that's really what the amendment does. If you have any questions about any of the technical aspects, I'd be happy to answer it, but it's very consistent with past work studies. There would be a minimal cost, if any at all. So basically, for really no cost, it's asking for us to have people look at the possibility of using our current university infrastructure, working with our governors, commissioners, our regional economic development agencies, businesses, to try to take a further step at improving the state of our rural economies.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir, and appreciate that. I'm going to try to get to questions the committee may have at this time. Senator Daughtry, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Collins, not only for your personal story, but for your passion on this issue and the amendment. Few things. One, I understand within the amendment, the task force looking at course content, which I completely understand the passion. I get a little bit of heartburn whenever we talk about prescribing content and curriculum for our institutions, which I know that Sam was able to share that in the bill analysis. I mean, I just think the other instances nationwide where people have tried to prescribe to academia that they can't study X, Y, and Z throughout history, and it even if it's for an incredibly and wonderful idea, I get a little nervous. But that being said, I think you are right. This is something we need to look at, but I do think maybe this task force might be, I think there's other entities that can already do this work. I mean, my first gut instinct is to say this is something that MEPRI could look at, but there's actually a bill that's pending an idea right now, LD 1517, which would be creating a version of of MEPRI, which its charge would be to specifically work with similar setup, so it's able to do these long-term longitudinal studies and come back with recommendations, or just showing the data. But this one would be geared towards looking towards workforce, student achievement, as well as licensure barriers. So it would actually probably fit better with what you're looking at within this amendment, within that entity. And so obviously it still needs to get passed and go through it, but this is exactly one of those topics that I think could be completely studied by this research group if we're lucky to get it through. It passed last session and then was one of the COVID casualties. So it's just going back through the idea process again. But I think that might be a better vehicle for this. And especially because if working with the university, you're getting the type of researchers who can have those buy-in from those groups, exactly like you said, of like working with, our tribal nations to be able to see where the gaps are and how we can do better for that. And, we had a bill this morning dealing with Waldo County. Like that's another area of like, what are our gaps for folks being able to access continuing education? So just my 2 cents worth on that.
Thank you, Senator. Any other questions by committee members? Yes, sir. Representative Brennan.
Thank you, Senator, and good to see you, Representative Collins. I see you more on Zoom than I do in Portland, but a couple of questions. Obviously, the university system, Ms. Warren submitted quite a bit of information about what the university is already doing in a number of these areas to address some of the issues that you raised. But I think the other question that is posed here is that this task force would set up a parallel or process outside the university, as Senator Doherty pointed out, that would then make some recommendations or possibly talk to the university about what they would do in terms of course content. And that seems to compromise the internal process that the university already has in terms of deciding course content and program development. So how would you respond to that?
Thank you, Representative Brennan. And I did see you yesterday in Augusta, so that was good. I'm happy to have coffee anytime in Portland when we're not in Zooms. So yes, and again, my intent is not to compromise or try to pressure the university to do something outside of their logical way of introducing new content, new courses. I just believe this is something that's very important. And what I'm trying to do is to see if we could analyze this, if there were resources available, how could they do this? And so I'm open to any vehicle for getting there. I want to build upon the infrastructure of the university system to do more to help the rural economy. And I foresee that they could do so much to get funding to do this and even hire more faculty and staff. But just in the USDA Rural Economic Development Grant Program alone, there are 88 different funds to work on rural economic development. So whether it's this bill or not, I'm hoping that the university, economic and community development, that people can look at this or study this, but I would encourage, through whatever process the university uses, that they greatly consider in their economics program or similar courses, focusing on Maine's rural economic development. So that's just my basic response. I'm not an expert on how they do this. I understand, just scratching the surface, that it does take time, that they have a process on curriculum. I don't want to be micromanaging and mandating what different campuses do. I'm simply suggesting that we talk about or study what it could look like if we did focus more on Maine's rural economy, because despite all the good initiatives and programs out there, public, private, nonprofit, we don't have a centralized, coordinated, facilitated effort to say, here's our vision for tackling the issues of Maine's rural economy. I understand we have so many things going in different directions, but it's to basically say, just like the 10-year economic plan is to say, here are our challenges, and over the next 10 years, here's what we can do. And here's how the university system can be part of that. And if you have students from around the world coming to these campuses, I would think it would make sense that we find some way, some incentive, at least as a pilot project, to say, all right, and maybe this is something the Commissioner of Economic Development's office could look at, is how can we get some grant from the USDA or somewhere to say, we want to keep some students on board from different parts of the country or the world and keep them in these communities and have them do work. And that's just sort of what the intent is. And I would only want to do something like this without compromising the way that the university system works and not taking away from existing resources.
Thank you, sir. Senator Daughtry, did you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering if we could have Ms. Warren come in real quick. I just have a quick question on this.
Yes, I'll check with Sam to see if she's still in. She is. Thank you, sir.
Can Sam bring Sam into the Zoom? Say that 10 times fast.
There are a lot of Sams on the Zoom today.
Yeah, we're Sam cubed today.
Nope. Thank you, Ms. Warren. Just a quick question. So the idea, taking, what Representative Collins has put forward and, the heart of this, I'm wondering if this is something, that either MEPRI or should we be lucky enough to get through another research institute? This is exactly the type of project that someone like that could do a deep dive in, separate from a task force, and come back with, concrete data and ideas and find gaps that we have in our state. Correct? Or wouldn't you agree, I guess?
Thank you, Senator Daughtry, for the question. I think I loved your suggestion of the kind of MEPRI for idea model, hoping that goes through, and that this would be exactly the sort of project that group could undertake, because it is comprised, the economists who I envision delivering, the research and analysis that, through that model are some of the same folks involved in the programs that are outlined in my testimony and in other communications. So I think that is absolutely the right direction. I know MEPRI is, working on developing its work plan for this committee, and I think has a pretty full slate of content given COVID related impacts and really wanting to understand those. So I'm not sure if it's the right study for those researchers, but absolutely the economists who would be part of this. But again, I would just say that, and I said this on a previous bill this morning, the university doesn't need to be directed to study what is inherent to study as part of its mission, right? I mean, this is what we do. This is why we have our campuses in rural communities, is so we can directly serve them. I think it came up earlier today, but many of you will remember when we took a hard look at the University of Maine at Machias. It was not financially sustainable on its own. And at the time, Chancellor Page reported to all of you that we were undertaking a study to look at the future of that campus, but taking that campus out of the community was never on the table. Financially, that may have made sense, but that is not consistent with the university's mission to serve rural communities. And I'm glad the good representative from Portland mentioned USDA. We just received a $1 million award from USDA to bring education, workforce training, and healthcare to rural communities. One of the telehealth, through technology, the DLT grants that they do, that's a partnership with all University of Maine system universities and several healthcare organizations, including Northern Light, as well as Phoenix Healthcare in Aroostook County. So, we brought in more than $150 million of external grants and awards last year across the system, largely at UMaine and also at USM. And so we're already looking at those federal funding and other sources to support these rural initiatives. So, happy to speak about more of the initiatives underway, but certainly we're already studying this every day because it's part of our mission and it's part of our commitment to rural communities. And I think the partnerships I outlined in my testimony and in the follow-up as well, when I talked about the connections between the local economic development organizations and our campuses with our presidents and faculty and staff serving on their boards and they serving on our boards, that dialogue is already happening. And of course, there's always more that can be done, but the university does not feel a study is needed to explore what more could be done.
Thank you, Ms. Warren. Mr. Chair, may I have a quick follow-up?
Please, yes, Senator.
Just to say thank you, and hearing that, I have to say I am inclined to not support this bill, and I think instead, recognize the work that's being done, but definitely think that this is something that, it's one of those topic areas that blurs the line between the IDEA committee and the ed committee, but I'm hopeful that this other institute will be able to go through, and I do think it's the exact body and entity to be able to do this research. So at this point, I think I would be inclined to say ought not to pass on this, just urging and potentially with a letter should the committee feel that's necessary. But I trust the good work of the university and of the economists and researchers. And I will say, not to give another plug for this other bill, but its steering committee is made up of folks from the different REM committees. We're trying to get people involved, folks who are working in workforce and business, and exactly the type of expertise that would be better, the boots on the ground to be able to do this type of work. So I guess I would urge my colleagues, and especially Representative Collins, to take a look at LD 1517. I think it's really exactly the mechanism to get at the heart of what you're looking at for this.
If that's a motion, I'd second it.
I guess so moved.
Second.
Thank you both, but Representative Millette and I had also Representative Salisbury had a hand up with a question or comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I really do appreciate what the sponsor is trying to get with this bill. We clearly have a serious issue in reviving rural Maine's economy. And I really do hope, and it sounds like from Senator Daughtry, that there are other vehicles that are going to really lean into this. And for that, I'm very glad. I would caution us not to legislate what MEPRI studies in particular. Representative McCray is our representative to the MEPRI committee, and he can share with them this discussion for everyone else to consider. And then they will be presenting to us some ideas about what MEPRI can research on behalf of the Education Committee at a future date. So I think I just want to remind folks that that's the process, then we should stick to it. But, you know, Representative McCray is with us wonderfully, and he's heard all of this. So I'm confident he will share that with MEPRI folks and with the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. And not feeling confident in my efficiency in terms of being official, I am going to move back to Senator Daughtry and ask her to make an official motion. And I'm sure Senator Woodson would be happy to follow up with his second. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would move ought not to pass.
I second.
Thank you both. Any additional discussion?
Mr. Chair, if I might.
Yes.
Just wanted to add real quick before we take the vote that, you know, I agree with everything that's been said about MEPRI and not wanting to be prescriptive. And I think perhaps maybe in our conversations, I don't know if it needs a formal letter, but just mentioning to IDEA that, you know, we're hearing this, you know, the need for really focusing and boosting our rural economies and the collaborative nature. I know that's one of the issues that we have as a legislature. Sometimes we get stuck in silos, but this is exactly that type of issue, cross collaboration and all of our different voices. So throwing that back out to the committee.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other hands and no further discussion, that I will ask Sam shortly to call the roll relative to
Senator,
the
it looks like Representative McCray might have a question.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The comments right at the very end of what Senator Daughtry mentioned, is that included in the motion that a letter would go to the IDEA committee showing our concern?
That was not part of her motion. No, that was just a comment that she added in there.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I'm trying to remember. I think, do we need a formal motion to send a letter? Is that something we can discuss at a later date, separate from this motion?
If we can do that at a later date, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Millette, please.
We actually have voted on letters. I think it can be included in the motion, and if you would accept a friendly amendment, I would ask you to consider that.
Fine by me.
Good here.
I like it.
Okay,
Thank you.
so we can, if you would be kind enough to add that, Representative Millette. Well, we will add that. I'm sorry. Yes, that's all right. Representative Brennan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a question of Senator Daughtry on 1517. That effort is separate from what MEPRI does for the Education Committee, right? That would be a separate appropriation, a separate agenda, and that it would be much more focused on economic development work and research and not be education related. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This was my baby last session and came out of work in collaboration with the university, with state chamber, with business, all these different partners. And the more we talked about it, the more excited we got about the fact that we don't really have, and we've all seen on this committee how beneficial MEPRI is, but that when it comes to a lot of workforce and rural development and rural economies, we don't have the same, mechanism to take a long-term longitudinal look at this. To be a completely separate institute, but set, sort of based off of the model of MEPRI, where it's a public-private partnership with a stakeholder committee of all of these various groups who are involved working on the different mechanisms. And I think it's something that's really missing in our legislative process, is to be able to have that very true nonpartisan look
So for us to send a letter saying that we would be supportive of them looking at this issue through that separate contract and separate process would be very appropriate. Okay, thank you.
Thank you both. If we could, seeing no other hands or questions, we'll get back to the vote then. So Sam, we have a motion of ought not to pass. That's been made and seconded. If you would be kind enough, sir, to call the roll at this time.
Yes, Senator. Senator Rafferty?
Yes.
Senator Rafferty votes yes. Senator Daughtry?
Yes.
Senator Daughtry votes yes. Senator Woodson?
Yes.
Senator Woodson votes yes. Representative Brennan?
Yes.
Representative Brennan votes yes. Representative Millette?
Yes.
Representative Millette votes yes. Representative McCray?
Yes.
Representative McCray votes yes. Representative Dodge?
Yes.
Representative Dodge votes yes. Representative Crockett?
Yes.
Representative Crockett votes yes. Representative Salisbury?
Yes.
Representative Salisbury votes yes. Representative Stearns?
Yes.
Representative Stearns votes yes. Representative Sampson?
Yes.
Representative Sampson votes yes. Representative Lyman?
Yes.
Representative Lyman votes yes. And Representative Roach?
Yes.
Representative Roach votes yes. So, Senator, it is unanimous of those present and voting in favor of the motion, 13-0.
Thank you all very much. And Representative Collins, I please don't let the outcome of the vote be reflective of our and your concerns. And good luck with carrying this forward. And we will do our best to assist you in this effort.
Well, thank you. Everything I work on becomes popular 20 years later. So I predict in the year, 2041, it's going to be a reality. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Have a good day.
Yes.
Thank you all. And so I will call that hearing on LD 1280 to the work session on LD 1280 to a close. I'm going to have to master those terms before we're done here. Sam Senford, did you have some updates for us?
Yes, I have some fiscal notes to subject you to. And then I have one other thing I would like to talk to you about GA reviews. So if I can put those fiscal notes up on the screen, if that's okay.
Thank you.
So this is the fiscal for a 30-minute lunch period for students. This is LD 655. So if you'll recall, this amendment directed DOE to conduct a survey of lunch periods to try to figure out what lunch periods look the feasibility of requiring a 30-minute lunch period. So this fiscal note indicates that additional costs to DOE can be absorbed, so minor cost increase. So that's the first one. So the next one here is the fiscal note for LD 515. This is an act to create new models of Maine manufacturing, employment, and education. So the fiscal note here is small, it's $500. So the bill includes other special revenue funds allocations of $500 a year to the Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics Council to authorize expenditures in the event private funds are received to support the activities of the council related to the development of higher education programs, as well as public-private partnerships to enhance higher education and employment opportunities in the state in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Additionally, additional costs to the UMaine system, community college system, and FAME can be absorbed. So $500 fiscal there. And then the last one, so the last one, I wanted to particularly raise your attention to this one because this one ended up being flagged as a potential state mandate. We had talked about it briefly at committee, but it did end up being flagged. So just as a reminder, this is LD 429. This is an act to protect the health of students and educators by requiring the establishment of health and safety committees and administrative school units and school administrative units. So this is the bill, if you'll remember, that as amended, the bill requires districts to expand their emergency management plans to include a comprehensive health and safety plan. And it also requires school boards to form a committee as requested to regularly review and refine the plan. So I think here what triggered the mandate flag is probably this second part, the requirement that a committee be formed to review and amend the plan as requested. It is because it's asking the SAU to do something that they currently do not have to do that could incur some costs. So that is going to trigger the mandate requirements. So either a general fund appropriation to fund at least 90% of any additional costs, or a mandate preamble be added to the bill and 2/3 of members of each House vote to exempt the mandate from the funding requirement. So so the committee could go either way here, either add appropriations to cover 90% of the cost, or add a mandate preamble. So that is my question for the committee.
Thanks, Sam. Can we get back to our gallery view here?
Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm kind of lost the order, but I think it was Representative Dodge, then by Representative Salisbury. I'm not.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Sedif. My question is, whoops, it's gone now. The language that we have currently about an SAU having a safety committee, does that safety committee have to do the same things that a health and safety committee would already, that would make this not an additional cost? I apologize for the construction, but am I making myself clear?
Yeah, I think I understand. So the amendment does, it's that I think as you were saying, the amendment kind of does two things. It requires that the plans themselves include this health and safety element that they don't now. But then there's this kind of second part, which requires that upon request, a committee can be convened to review the plan. And that's new. So that language is a little bit, and I'm guessing that may be the part that is triggering the mandate flag here.
A follow-up, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Please.
You've gone somewhere else in my lineup here. Thank you very much. So we have folks in the DOE who are helping to oversee school safety and to review the plans at each SAU level. Is that correct?
Sorry, can you restate that? I apologize.
Sure. We currently have folks in the Department of Education who are part of the school safety umbrella. Are those folks currently responsible for updating school safety plans and convening the necessary people to do so?
My understanding is that those responsibilities fall to the school board. I would defer to anybody who has more information about that, but my reading of it is that it is the school board's responsibility. I don't know if Representative Millet might know more about that piece.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Millet, could you offer anything in that direction that you're aware of to help Sam?
I think the committee may need to just step back a bit and not put Sam in this position, because he's not the one who writes the fiscal notes. Our argument actually is with OFPR. So I think if we disagree that with this fiscal note, then perhaps the chairs could have a discussion with OFPR about why, and members can talk with the chairs as to why they think this note is an error. But Sam didn't write it. He helped us write the bill as amended, but then OFPR took that information and then decided what the note is. So unless I'm wrong.
No, the question he was asking was, were you aware of if the DOE checks on those committees at the local level, or is it just school boards that do that?
Yeah, no, the DOE doesn't do that. That's school board. That's a local process.
So thank you. That was the question that represented.
Okay, but I raised my hand just to say, this is OFPR, not OPLA.
Would the committee like me to go back and have a conversation with the analyst? And I can kind of do that first and see where we are, and then come back to the committee on Monday, if that's helpful as an initial kind of step.
I think my own head is trying to nod, and I see several others doing the same. So if you have the time and are the ability to do so, that would be great. We would be looking for the clarification.
Sure.
Yep. My sense is that we're not asking people to do anything that they're not already doing. So. Representative Salisbury. Okay, thank you.
Yes to all of that. And I am agreeing with that. My question was around in looking at this, and Sam, this, when you go back and ask, I am concerned saying that significant statewide, because I think like Senator Rafferty just said, a lot of school districts have health and safety committees, and they have plans and processes to review these plans, and could easily, based on that committee, could convene something to review a request from a student or staff. So I think, like you said, a lot of this is happening. So I'm concerned about a significant cost statewide. And I think where what I guess clarification, maybe even further than that, back on the bill, like if a school district said, we do have this committee that does review this, will that fulfill those requirements? So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We'd appreciate that, Sam. Thanks. And then thanks for the offer. Representative Crockett.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with what everybody is saying, and I think because this happens to be Representative McCrae's bill, and unfortunately he's not here right now, so getting his input I think would be very helpful.
Thank you. I can't foresee that he would object to Sam's, going back for clarification. So, but that's going to come back to us as a group on Monday anyway. I can call him in the meantime. All right. And if there's a change in that, Sam, I'll let you know. Representative Dodge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I must confess I have just committed a mortal sin, and for that I apologize, but I would like to read what I put in the chat so that it can be part of the record. No shade thrown to Sam, ever. Smiley face. Thank you.
Thank you. That's for both Sams, as always. But Anything else, folks? Sam, did you have anything
I
beyond
do.
that? Yes, sir.
I have one more thing to bring to the committee's attention. Folks may be familiar, if this is not your first service in the legislature. Every session, each committee, usually, goes through something called Government Evaluation Act reviews. So this is the process that is in statute by which a committee of jurisdiction reviews a kind of set of questions regarding an agency or a quasi-agency. And each committee has agencies that fall under their jurisdiction. And there is a schedule actually set in statute for each of the committees to do this thing called this Government Evaluation Act review of an agency. So this session, this committee is slated to review the Department of Education as well as the Board of Education. So the process works like this. The committee in the first session by May 1st, which is Saturday, decides if they would like to proceed with a review of the agency. If they would like to do so, we will send a short letter to both the DOE and or the board and say we would like to proceed with our scheduled review. By November 1st, the agency submits to us a list of answers to a list of questions that are included in statute. And then presents it to the committee next session. The committee usually brings in the agency and may ask them lots of questions related to the review or not, totally up to the committee. So this is an opportunity. It's in statute to provide the committee with a kind of regularly scheduled opportunity to look at the workings of an agency and to dig a little deeper apart from kind of the context of any bill that comes before that committee. So the answer that I would need from the committee is simply, would the committee like to proceed with the scheduled DA reviews of the board and with the Department of Education? And if so, Hillary and I will get that letter sent out so that they are on notice that the committee is proceeding.
Thank you.
Yes, I don't know. What am I supposed to
I
respond?
hear,
How does that
I
work?
hear 1 yes. I guess we can go with a show of hands or a thumbs up either way. All right, we're looking for some direction. So we do approve to move forward with that study. Sam, did you say that the actual questions were in statute as well?
Yeah, it's pretty prescriptive.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the reality is we're sending questions. We're not creating questions, but we do have the right at next session, when they come in, we can do the Q&As that we can add our own Qs. Okay, thank you.
So we will go ahead and get those letters sent out so that
Appreciate that. And Representative Salisbury.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is it possible, can you refer us or tell us what those questions are, just so we can see ahead of time?
Absolutely. I will send out information on the GE process and the statutory citations to everybody this afternoon.
Thank you. And Representative Stearns?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My apologies for not getting my hand up quickly enough, but my understanding is that Sam's going to go back to OPLA and inquire about the fiscal note. Am I correct?
I'll talk to my colleague in OFPR who handles the fiscal notes. We work together closely, so we'll just kind of we'll talk about this conversation here, and I'll make sure she has all the information that the committee gave me today.
Okay. I'd be interested in the language, and I brought it up during the work session of the bill, that would require the safety committee to convene by request. I think that's a key piece to the thing. So I'd be interested in what they say.
Yeah, and if that's kind of the linchpin here, I will certainly bring that information back to the committee for consideration. Yeah.
Thank you. Anything else, folks? Awesome. Well, we've had, I know it was a busy week. Yesterday was a long day. And so I hope we enjoy the extended weekend. I know that probably several of you have some committees to attend to tomorrow. Maybe you'll have, you won't be going from place to place. You'll actually be able to go and testify or at least be present for a work session. And we do, just a reminder to my own group that Monday, we're going to try to convene at 11. I'll send a reminder out for a caucus. All set?
Have a good weekend.
Thank you all, folks. Thanks for everything you've done all week and continue to do.